Hope I have. We see the screen. All right. So today we are going to be talking about your role in sexual violence prevention. So this is going to be a tough topic. So I just want you guys to be aware that we're going to focus though on how to make your community safer, what you can do and roles you can play in understanding sexual violence and how to respond to someone and how to be able to refer them to the programs that we have. So my name is Colleen Hoffman, and I'm here today from Safe Place of Eastern South Dakota. And like I mentioned before, this is our fourth webinar series. We did the first one with In Her Shoes. We did domestic violence. We did stalking. And now today we're doing sexual violence, sexual assault. This presentation is supported by the Office of Violence Against Women. And Safe Place got this grant, prevention grant, so that we could be able to present to you today and be able to get education and information out about these various topics. So what we're going to discuss is define what sexual assault is. We'll talk about the different types of sexual violence, look about what the impact and the effect is, touch on some statistics. We want to make sure that we want to empower victims and provide them the resources that are available. And then I'll talk about some other sexual assault resources that we have. We're going to start off with an exercise. So hopefully everybody's got at least a pen and paper in front of them. If you're able to tear them up into 4 pieces. If you're not, then just write 1 through 4 on them. And once you do that, we will go on to the first question. So what I want you to do after you numbered your strips of paper, or just numbered 1 through 4 on your paper, on the very first one, write the person's name on there that you trust the most. Who is someone that if you had something that you were going through that you would be able to talk to them? Who is that go-to person for you? The next one, number 2, I want you to write a place where you feel the safest. Where is that place that you would go to feel that comfort, that kind of getaway place for you? What does that safest place look like? And write that down. And then for number 3, what's your favorite group activity or sport or club? What's something that you like to do? For instance, for me, I like to do my crafting. So I do the scrapbooking. And then number 4, write down a secret, something that you have told nobody or only 1 or 2 others. Okay, now that we've have all of those written down, I want us to focus back on the first one. The first one I asked you to write down someone that you trust the most. Now it either depends on how you did it. If you have a strip of paper, I want you to tear that up and throw it away. If you wrote it down, I want you to scratch that person's name out. The reason I want you to do this is to think about, now that we've tore it up, that this person's name that we've written, you can no longer talk to them or be with that person, because this person either blames you for the sexual assault or you were assaulted by that person. Think about how you feel now. On the next one, I talked about a place where you feel the safest. I want you to tear up that piece of paper or scratch that out. Now that you've done that, you no longer feel comfortable going to that place. That's where you were assaulted. How do you feel now? Number 3, I asked you to write down your favorite group activity or club or something you like to do. Now I want you to tear up that piece of paper, or like I said, scratch it out. You can no longer take part in this activity. You might see the perpetrator there. You don't longer feel safe there. How do you feel now? And the last one, I asked you to write down a secret. Now I want you to take that piece of paper with the secret you've written on it. You can't tear this one up. You can't throw it away. You must keep it forever. Think about what you might do if they knew. Now think about telling a stranger, maybe a tutor, your family member, a friend. How do you feel? What might you worry about if you were going to tell someone? What would be their possible reaction to you sharing this? The reason that I had you do this project is just to think about how a survivor might react after being assaulted. What if that person who assaulted him or her was their friend or family member or partner? What happened if they didn't feel safe? What if they could no longer take part in those social activities that they like doing? So that's why it's so important that we want to learn about what the dynamics of sexual assault are and how we can be that support system for someone. Sexual assault is defined as being motivated by that power and control. It's a crime against someone's personal body and will. Sexual assault perpetrators rarely use weapons, and they rarely use that physical force. They rely more on those verbal threats, that intimidation, and they play on the victim's vulnerabilities. Sexual assault predators target, they test, they groom. They're out looking for that vulnerability. They are looking for certain qualities that will fit into this manipulation that they do. Research and experience has shown us that sexual assault is one of the most unreported violent crimes in our society. And we'll talk later about why that is. So what is sexual assault? It's any sexual assault act without consent. Consent cannot be obtained when someone is a minor, they're incapable of making the decision, or have certain disabilities. This includes rape, fondling, grabbing someone sexually. It also falls under sexual harassment, stalking, domestic and dating violence, and many other behaviors. So look at the different types of sexual violence. I broke it down into these 3 categories. We have the visual, we have the verbal, and we have the physical. When we talk about the visual sexual violence, those are actions that are based on someone when you're being seen or watched. These include like sexual exploitation, posters, a lot of stuff with exposure with our social media. Another similar example of visual sexual violence is using another person's images, sexual images, and sharing them out, whether it's sending it to friends or maybe posting it on social media as a type of revenge. When we talk about the verbal sexual violence, that could be anything language-based. That harassment verbally, that would be degrading, unwanted verbal aggression. Just think about when we're talking about that as any verbal advances or demanding commands that they talk about verbally. And then that physical violence is the one we usually gravitate towards when we think about sexual violence. That is the stuff that we talk about with rape, assault, groping, anything of that nature falls into the physical sexual violence. So what's the impact? How is sexual assault impacting someone? It's important to know some of the common responses that a victim survivor of sexual violence may exhibit. That way we are able to get a better understanding and then be able to respond to them. These are the 4 different impacts. Again, I put them in categories for us to look at. We have the physical effects, the emotional effects, the cognitive effects, and the social effects. With the physical effects, these might include change in weight, eating behaviors, sleeping habits. Some of them may not be able to sleep. Some of them will have nightmares. We talk about maybe developing headaches, body aches, the increased use of substance abuse or drugs to try to numb that pain. With our emotional might include depression, anxiety, mood swings, fear, being numb. Many victims feel ashamed, anger, or guilt. They have that self-blame. And a lot of them just are the fear, just not feeling, they feel unclean from what has happened. Cognitive effects might include maybe changes in studying or their ability to attend work or school or activities, inability to recall information or concentrate on their work. Other cognitive effects could maybe include questioning their faith or their spirituality. Why me? Did I deserve it? They do that, have the idea of the self-harm, thoughts of suicide may start to increase. With that social effects include maybe changes in friendships. They're withdrawn, usually from activities or routines that they like doing. Difficulty with being around others, meeting regular obligations. Some victim survivors see changes maybe in even their sexual activities, such as maybe more frequent or difficulty with intimacy. No matter how someone is responding to their sexual violence, it's important to support the victim survivor. All victim survivors cope with trauma differently and in unique ways. And what matters most is meeting the victim and survivor where they are and providing them with support. And that's really what we do here as advocates. But it's also important for you guys to know, because when I talked earlier in the earlier slide, sexual assault is one of the most unreported crimes that one can face. And when someone responds to you, you are the first responders on that, not necessarily a victim's advocate or law enforcement. When it comes to sexual assault reporting, most victims do not report sexual assault to law enforcement. Men are even less likely to report sexual assault to police than women. Victims rarely report to police. Usually they go to a close friend, relative, healthcare provider, or a victim's advocate before reporting to law enforcement. Victims often delay reporting a sexual assault. They may wait days, weeks, months, even years, and some may never even disclose at all to anyone, including their closest friends. And what happens with sexual assault too, there could be some stalking, like I talked about earlier. We have the grooming, so they're monitoring and surveilling and keeping an eye out for that. Sexual assault suspects, or we call them perpetrators, they do a lot of the victim targeting. They're testing their waters, trying to figure out, is this okay that I can do this? Is this going to be something that I can have power control over? And they're doing a lot of the grooming. Grooming behaviors are designed to build that trust with a victim, and then they'll start breaking down the defenses in order to increase the opportunity to have the sexual assault. They'll minimize the victim's resistance, reduce the disclosure, and then that will decrease any detection. So these behaviors might include getting the individual access. They'll start threats, isolation, testing those boundaries within that relationship, and then start controlling the relationship. So we'll talk about the statistics on sexual assault. In small communities and rural areas, many of these problems are further exacerbated. Victims in these communities often find themselves in a great distance from law enforcement or even that medical help that they need. With smaller communities, we may know law enforcement in the area, and they may have a difficulty time trying to report or even call for support. Most perpetrators are someone that know the victim. Approximately 8 out of 10 sexual assaults are committed by someone they know. Just like with domestic violence, and we talked about with stalking, a lot of times it is that person that they know that they're connected with. It's not going to be that random stranger that comes up to them to commit that crime. Every 68 seconds, an American is sexually assaulted. Everyone is affected by domestic violence, and I'll have a slide that will show you how everyone is impacted by domestic violence, but 9 out of 10 victims of rape are female. 1 in 6 women and 1 in 33 men will be victims in their lifetime. So it's hard for us to see as a problem affecting us personally, but who is impacted? Acts of sexual violence involve a victim and perpetrator. However, there are many people that are around these two individuals that might be able to react when we see something troubling going on. Who might these people be? They might be friends, family, coworkers, neighbors, even strangers. Go back to that slide again here. All these individuals and groups have a role in this prevention work. That's why we're bringing this educational piece to you. You have the power to be able to say or do something or try to help prevent what's happening. You might be able to now know how to recognize inappropriate behavior and look at we're going to look at some examples to help figure out whether behaviors are appropriate or inappropriate. So here's some locations of where sexual assaults occur. A lot of times we talk about with sexual assault that it is near the victim's home. 55% of sexual assaults that occur are either near their place or in their own home. 48% when we talk about other things, when they occur, we're sleeping or performing another activity at home. Some of them were traveling to or from work. Some of them were attending their activities when this has happened. So what might it look like? With this, we're going to work together. I just want you guys to tell me if this behavior would be something that is appropriate, might be sexual assault. We're just trying to get a figure in our minds what that would look like. If it's inappropriate, or would it be sexual violence? By having us do this activity, we'll be able to recognize and maybe step in and be able to do something, be this preventative work. So 2 teenagers kissing in a mall, would that be something that might be inappropriate, or would that be something that we want to keep a heads up that this would be a sexual assault? And I'm not able to see the chat, so I'm not, I don't know if anybody is, what their response would be.
I would say that that's most likely okay.
Okay, thank you. So the next one, a man grabs a stranger behind in a bar. What do we think about when we see this example?
Assault.
Construction worker makes comment about a woman's body as they walk by.
Sexual harassment.
Yeah. A boss sends out an email with a blonde joke to employees.
Inappropriate.
A woman pressures her partner to have sex.
Assault or inappropriate or problematic.
Yep. So range of behaviors. This slide, we're going to show the range of behaviors from like healthy and normal to violent and abusive. We're going to talk more on specific behaviors in a moment, but just let's take a look at these. So it's important to know here the differentiating between our, healthy versus sexuality versus sexual violence. So our first one is that healthy, age appropriate respect for each other. That's the way that our relationships should look like. Then we have our mutual flirtiness, playfulness. And then we have situations or age inappropriate or non-mutual. We talk about with situation with the boss, not the boss, the gentleman in the bar. We talk about the two teenagers. So there might be some things that might be situations be okay and some that are inappropriate. And then we have our harassment and then our sexual abuse and the violence that happens. Some of us might be more comfortable saying something to a victim, but in this next slide, we're going to talk about what can I say or do for someone. Can you think of some others, or can you think of an example where you had to offer help to someone? And how might these questions be different for someone you're close to versus someone you don't know? By asking these kinds of questions, you show that you care about someone else's well-being. And sometimes that can make the biggest difference to a person who feels scared or uncomfortable. The thing that we ask is that you're validating that they were right to feel what's happening to them, and also indicates the other person in the area that you're paying attention and you want to help them and help them find the answers to getting the appropriate help that they need. But things we can ask them is, do you need help? Can I walk you home? Are you all right? Should I call the police? And with this, we want them to feel empowered and want you to walk alongside them and give them the choices on what they want to do. Help them if they're uncertain about what they want to do. Talk to them about their options when it comes to dealing with their feelings of what they need to do next. Do you want me to call someone for you? And do you want me to talk to someone? What can I do to help you? And is everything okay? I have some more on this one too. What would you say earlier bothered you? How would you feel if someone did this to your sister? I don't like what you did. I know well enough to know that you would not want to hurt someone. These are talking points that we mentioned earlier, that preventing sexual violence about more than just the victim, the perpetrator. Prevention involves people immediately around and connected to that potential victim and perpetrator, but it's sometimes easier for us individuals to take action if there is maybe policies or a procedure or even social norms to get more involved. But here's some questions that we can ask ourselves about our communities, our environment that we're in. And maybe I can say something about it because I care about you. Everyone has a role to play in preventing sexual violence. There are different ways that we can step up to make a difference. And I have some acronyms in here. This one is CARE. What does that look like? We want to be able to help be that bystander, be an active bystander for someone and to help out. They may not directly be involved, but then you do have the choice and the opportunity to speak up and to intervene. So create that distraction. Ask directly. We have some things that we talked about earlier, what you can ask. Rally others around and extend support to someone. Taking action and interfering safely is essential. Stepping in can make a difference, but it should never put yourself or your own safety at risk. When we're creating a distraction, it's suitable to be the purpose of the distraction to interrupt that incident safely by communicating with the individual at risk and giving them an opportunity to safely exit. Some of ideas would be maybe cutting off the conversation with a diversion like, let's get pizza, or this party is lame, or let's try somewhere else to go, or bring them food or a fresh drink, or maybe start another question just to be able to create that distraction. And then ask directly to that person once you've intervened, ask them the following questions. Do you need help? Would you like me to stay with you? Would you like to get out of here and go somewhere else? That will help de-escalate what's happening. And then rally others. Ask someone else to come with you to approach that person. Ask someone else to intervene in your place if you don't feel comfortable. Your friend looks like you have a lot to drink. Can you go check on them for me? And extend support. After you've went in and created that distraction, say, do you want me to walk with you to your car? Would you like some resources from some support? And be there for them. Your actions matter. Whether you were able to change that outcome or by stepping in and helping make that change, you can help prevent a sexual assault from occurring. So how to support, and here's my acronym again. So now we care, now we're going to talk. We want to thank them for telling you. If someone discloses to you, it's important to take a moment to acknowledge how incredibly difficult it was for them to share and show that you appreciate them reaching out. Thank them for telling me this. It means a lot. And then ask how you can help. Even though you're the first person they may come and tell, you don't have to have all the answers. You just have to listen and let them know that you're going to be there for them in this time of need. If this is the first time someone has disclosed the assault or it just happened, they may not be certain on what they need to do next. So it's better to ask someone and have that information on where they need to go. And then we ask you listen without judgment. It isn't normal to have while it's normal to have reactions like anger, shock, disbelief that this is happening, we want you to listen without judgment. Be the one that would be there to support them. If someone starts a conversation and telling you what has happened, don't put them down, just listen. Thank them so much for telling you what's going on, and then help them figure out the next steps and focus on their feelings. Keep supporting them. Listen to whatever the survivor is telling you in a calm manner. Support them. Say, I'm sorry this has happened to you. I believe you. You're not alone. And it's not your fault. Some things that examples of what not to do. Don't ask them if they're absolutely sure that this has happened. Don't say that what they described doesn't sound like a sexual assault or it isn't that bad. Don't ask for details on what happened. Questioning them, don't do that. What you want to do is just be able to listen, support, and then find the services for them. So here's some support services that we have in South Dakota. We have a sexual assault task force by the South Dakota Network, and I have that information and website in another slide. Locally here, we have the Domestic Violence Sexual Assault Response Team. Safe Place has victim advocates. We also have a sexual assault nurse examiner. And you can also make anonymous reports. If someone is coming to you and they don't want to report it to law enforcement, there are advocates you could talk to. If you want a kit done, you can be able to get a kit anonymously that you don't have to make that report. Our agency has a domestic violence sexual assault response team, and it consists of trained professionals. Those trained professionals are law enforcement. We have the hospital, we have counselors, we have legal professionals on there. And what we're doing is we are talking about how to better our responses when it comes to domestic violence and sexual assault. One of the things that our team put together is the Angel Shop program. There are some bars here in our community that utilize that. When they are out with friends, they can see that we have this program. If someone is feeling uncomfortable, as we talked about with sexual assault, there are things that they can do. They can talk to the bartender and they can get out safely. And the counties that we serve are 8 counties here. We have Aurora, Davison, Douglas, Hanson, Hutchinson, Gerald, Minor, and Sanborn. Safe Place, we have victims advocates, and we provide services for support. We're there for them. We're able to just be there to kind of talk about the steps that are going through for our protocol when a sexual assault occurs in our community. We are advocating with them through the law enforcement with the questioning, interviewing, investigating, and we're also with them when they go to the hospital when they go through the sexual assault kit. South Dakota has victim service programs. There are the 2 main ones. The first one is we are under the Department of Public Safety for victim services. And I have that website there. That way you can get on and look at all of the different programs across South Dakota that work with domestic violence and sexual assault. And then we're also members of the South Dakota Network, and they provide us a number of information and materials and support around domestic violence and sexual assault. And in our state, this is a map of the South Dakota with the ESANE and our shelters. So the little triangles that you see are our shelter programs that work with sexual assault. We have over 30 programs in South Dakota. And the little E's on here are ESANE. So the ESANE program is through Vera McKinnon in Sioux Falls, and Jen Canton is the lead of the nurse examiners program. And I have her email listed on this slide here. And then the black looks like a diamond there. Those are ones that actually have SANE nurses on site. So in our area, we have the area of Mitchell, Parkston, Freeman, Wessington Springs. Those are the ones that our local area helps when it comes for our sexual assault. So education about sexual assault is so important. We've learned through this presentation that sexual violence affects women, it affects men, it affects children throughout their lives. We talked in an earlier slide, it affects 1 in 33 men, it affects 1 in 6 women, and it's devastating for these individuals. It's devastating for us as families and communities. So together we can make the change, the conditions that continue to contribute to sexual violence. So what are the next steps? Here's some take-home points for you guys. You have a role to play in preventing sexual violence. We talked about that bystander intervention and how to be able to create that distraction for someone and how to safely remove them from a situation. There are many opportunities all day long to make a difference in a small way. Just being there for them. There are many ways that we can speak up, take action. What we do in April for Sexual Assault Awareness Month is we have our Start by Believing campaign. This year we did it with Mitchell Tech College, and DW is our university here. We had a booth set up for the day, and we encouraged people to come and take a pledge. Take a pledge that you believe when someone comes to you, because it is your reaction to them disclosing to you that will make all the difference. And always consider the consequences too. If there is a time that them or yourself are in immediate danger, then we ask that you call 911 to get law enforcement involved. So here are some local resources. Here's our information, Safe Place of Eastern South Dakota. You can get onto our website, and then the National Sexual Violence. They have tons of wonderful resources that you can utilize, and I have all of their information there. This is just a start. We hope that I hope that you've learned today something that you can take with you to be able to help prevent sexual assault. Do you guys have any questions?